I worked the night shift at an empty warehouse. Just me, alone, from 10 p.m. until 6 in the morning, when the day workers would arrive. My job was simple. Patrol the building, walk through the offices and warehouse floors, make sure everything was secure. Night after night, the same routine, the same empty halls. I'd grown comfortable with the solitude, the silence, even welcomed it in a way. There's something peaceful about a building that size when you know you're the only living soul inside. Or at least you think you are. It was around 2 in the morning when it happened. He was doing his usual patrol, walking through the office section, a long corridor lined with doors, each leading to small offices that had been locked up hours ago. His footsteps echoed against the linoleum floor. The overhead lights hummed their monotonous tune. Everything was normal. And then he heard it. A knock. He stopped walking. The sound had come from one of the offices to his right. Clear as day, 3 distinct knocks on the door from the inside. His first thought was logical. Someone must have gotten locked in. Maybe a worker stayed late, fell asleep, woke up to find themselves trapped. It happens. He approached the door slowly, his flashlight beam cutting through the dim hallway. "Hello?" he called out. "Is someone in there?" Nothing. Just the hum of the lights above. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe it was the building settling, a pipe expanding, something perfectly explainable. He was about to turn away when it happened again. 3 knocks, right in front of his face. Someone, or something, was on the other side of that door, knocking, deliberately, waiting. His hand hovered over the doorknob. Every instinct told him to walk away, to radio for backup, to not open that door. But he had a job to do. He had to check, had to know. He turned the knob slowly, pushed the door open, and swept his flashlight across the room. Empty. Completely empty. The desk was bare. The chairs were pushed in. The window was locked from the inside. No one could have gotten out. No one could have been in there. But someone, something, had knocked. He'd heard it, felt it even, the vibration of knuckles against wood just inches from his face. He stood there in the doorway for what felt like an eternity, his flashlight beam shaking slightly in his hand. The office remained still, silent, indifferent to his fear. He closed the door and continued his patrol. But something had changed. The warehouse didn't feel empty anymore. Every shadow seemed to hold weight. Every corner promised movement. And for the rest of his shift, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. That somewhere in those endless halls, something was walking parallel to him, matching his pace, waiting for him to round the next corner. He never heard the knocking again. But every night when he passed that door, he'd pause, listen, and wonder. What would have happened if he'd arrived just a few seconds earlier? What would he have seen through the gap in the door before whatever was inside had time to hide? Some questions are better left unanswered. I'm a night owl, someone who finds peace in the quiet hours after midnight, when the streets belong to the few instead of the many. I'd often take walks through my neighborhood, earbuds in, lost in thought, enjoying the rare solitude that only a sleeping city can provide. It was around 1:30 in the morning. The street was empty, lit by pools of orange sodium light from the street lamps above. I was walking home, hands in pockets, when I noticed him. A man, at the far end of the street, dancing. Not dancing like someone at a club or a party. Dancing like someone who'd forgotten what dancing was supposed to look like and was improvising from a half-remembered dream. His movements were wrong. Too fluid, too jerky, like a marionette being controlled by someone who'd never seen a human move before. I slowed my pace, watching. The man was tall, impossibly thin, wearing what looked like an old, outdated suit. His arms swayed at odd angles. His legs carried him forward in a strange, waltz-like step. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, each step bringing him closer. And then I saw his face. His eyes were wide, not just open, wide, staring up at the sky with an expression of absolute wonder, as if he was seeing something beautiful that no one else could see. His mouth was stretched into a smile. Not a happy smile. A painful one. Like someone had carved it into his face and told him to hold it there. My instincts kicked in. Something was very, very wrong. I crossed the street, putting distance between myself and the dancing man. But then something worse happened. The man stopped dancing. He stood perfectly still in the middle of the street, his head still tilted back, his smile still frozen in place. And then, slowly, so slowly it seemed impossible, he began to turn. Not his whole body, just his head. Rotating on his neck like an owl, turning to face me even though his body still pointed down the street. When his eyes locked onto mine, I ran. I didn't look back, didn't dare. I could hear it behind me. The tap, tap, tap of dress shoes on pavement, but wrong somehow. Too fast, not the rhythm of running, but that same 1, 2, 3 waltz step, impossibly quick, closing the distance. I cut through an alley, vaulted a fence, emerged on another street. My lungs burned, my heart hammered. I risked a glance over my shoulder and saw him, still dancing, still smiling, still coming. Finally, I reached my apartment building, fumbled with keys, threw myself inside and slammed the door. I ran up the stairs, didn't trust the elevator, didn't trust anything that would trap me in a small space, and locked myself in my apartment. I went to the window, looked down at the street below. He was there, standing under the street light directly in front of my building, still smiling, still staring up at the sky. And then, as if he could feel my eyes on him, he looked up, made eye contact through the window, and waved. Not a threatening wave, not a malicious wave, a cheerful, friendly little wave, like someone greeting an old friend. And then he danced away into the darkness, disappearing between the buildings, and I never saw him again. Years later, I still think about him sometimes. The smiling man. Who was he? What did he want? Was he dangerous or just different? Lost in his own world, unaware of how terrifying he appeared to others? I hope I never find out. Because some mysteries, I believe, are better left unsolved. Some people are better left unmet. I worked the early morning shift at a bakery. Not quite night shift, but close. I'd arrive at 4 a.m. to prepare the day's bread, pastries, all the things that needed to be fresh when the doors opened at 6. The bakery was in a small strip mall, the kind that's completely deserted in the early morning hours. Most mornings, I'd be the only car in the parking lot. I'd unlock the door, turn on the lights, and work in peaceful solitude for those 2 hours. This particular morning started like any other. Dark, quiet, the parking lot empty except for my car. I unlocked the door, flipped on the lights, and got to work. The oven needed preheating, the dough needed proofing. There was a rhythm to it, a comfort in the routine. I was in the back, pulling trays from storage, when I heard the front door chime. I froze. The door was locked. I'd locked it myself. The bakery wasn't open yet. No one else had keys except the owner, and he never came in this early. "We're not open yet," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. You'll have to come back at 6. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the front of the store, moving toward the back where I stood. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, and stepped out to the front counter. A man stood there, middle-aged, wearing a baker's uniform, white apron, white hat, the whole setup. He stared at me with an expression that was hard to read, not threatening, not friendly, just watching. "Can I help you?" I asked, thumb hovering over the emergency call button on my phone. The man didn't respond, just stood there, hands at his sides, staring. "I'm sorry, but we're closed." I tried again. "You need to leave." Still nothing. The man took a step closer, then another. His movements were normal, too normal, like he was consciously thinking about each step, making sure to move exactly how a person should move. That's when I noticed his uniform. It was wrong. The style was from decades ago, the kind I'd seen in old photos of the bakery when it first opened in the 70s. The fabric looked worn, stained with flour and something darker, and his name tag. The name on it belonged to someone who'd worked there decades ago, someone who died before I was born. "John," I said into my headset. A lie, there was no John. But I needed this man to think I wasn't alone. "John, will you please call for assistance? There's a man here who won't leave." For the first time, the man's expression changed. His eyes widened slightly, like he'd heard something that surprised him or disappointed him. He took one step back, then another. His mouth opened as if he was about to speak. The real baker, the one actually scheduled for the morning shift, walked through the front door. "Sorry I'm late," he called out. "Traffic was..." He stopped, looking between me and the strange man. But when I turned back, the man in the old uniform was gone, vanished. The front door hadn't opened. There was nowhere he could have gone. But he was simply not there anymore. The two of us searched the entire bakery. Every room, every closet, every space large enough to hide a person. Nothing. It was as if he'd never been there at all. But he had been. I'd seen him, watched him approach, heard his footsteps on the tile floor. I never worked alone at the bakery again. And whenever I arrived in those early morning hours, I'd pause before unlocking the door, peering through the glass, making sure the interior was empty before stepping inside. Because I'd learned something that morning. Sometimes the people you see aren't really there. And sometimes the people who aren't really there are the ones you should fear the most.